hello everyone. As you can see, the moving process is underway. My walls are now empty and barren, so if there's a bit of an echo in here, I apologize, because the things on my wall were keeping the sound from reverberating and doing all that other shit, and making my making my apartment acoustically suitable to be filming videos, but that probably won't be the case for the next couple of videos. But my next video next week will be a preview of the Royal Rumble and the next NXT TakeOver special. But for this video, still going to be very WWE centric. I got to talk about the UK Championship Tournament and the first inductee into the 2017 WWE Hall of Fame. So let's just jump right into it. The UK Championship Tournament overall, thought it was good. It was fun. Very nice, solid, old school style tournament. I liked the venue a lot. I liked the way it looked. It looked different from a WWE show, which is always nice, because that's one of my complaints against Raw, SmackDown, and the pay-per-views, is that they all look the same. And NXT does a better job of making their show, whenever they go to a different venue, they at least try to make the shows look somewhat different from each other, and I just don't look like I'm watching the exact same thing every single time. And this kind of, the way the venue looked and everything, it kind of looked like an old school Raw, which was pretty cool. And again, it just looked different, and it was immediately catching, and got my attention right off the bat. And the announce team, actually, Michael Cole and Nigel McGuinness, I mean, I knew Nigel would be good because I've listened to him call matches before, but Michael Cole, there's always that, oh dear God, it's Michael calling the matches. But maybe it's just having Nigel as a partner, or maybe it's the further away from the main roster he gets, the less control Vince has over his commentary. But Michael Cole did very well for the most part. So not a whole lot of complaints. I think when he's doing Raw, he has to push shit and advertise shit and say stupid things because Vince tells him to say stupid things. So maybe on this he didn't have that problem. He came across okay. I don't know. But overall, I thought both shows were nice and solid. I thought there was a nice through line going throughout the entire tournament, namely Pete Dunne being this brutish, mean, vicious heel. Even though it is weird that he has like a Prince Adam haircut. He kind of, with the Daniel Bryan colors and the haircut, he kind of looked like Prince Adam a little bit. Maybe it's just because I've been reading that He-Man and She-Ra book and I've just got He-Man on the brain. But kind of an odd look to him. But overall, I thought he played the role well of being this vicious, brutish heel. And then on the other side of things, you had a couple of baby faces that could potentially move forward to challenge him. And ultimately defeat him. You had Mandrews, who was kind of a, you know, I saw him in TNA, obviously, and he was kind of a Cinderella story going throughout the entire thing. You had Wolfgang, who was this kind of atypical, or I mean, for modern days, he's very atypical in the way he looks. He's, you know, big beard and kind of a big guy, and doesn't look like the greatest athlete in the world, but he can do these amazing things that his body shouldn't permit him to do. So he was a very enjoyable babyface throughout the entire thing. And of course you had Tyler Bate, who was this young, good-natured guy who kind of looks like Jack Gallagher in a way, which is always a plus because I love Jack Gallagher, and he had kind of the personality to match. So you had these three baby faces going all throughout the tournament, and ultimately one of them defeated Pete Dunne, and I thought it was great what they did, where Tyler Bate beat Wolfgang in the semifinals. Pete Dunne had already defeated Mandrews, which was a great match, by the way. The two best matches of the tournament were Dunne versus Mandrews and the finals, which was great. But and the reason the finals was great because it told a fucking story and kind of was a perfect capstone to the whole tournament, where Pete Dunne attacked Tyler Bate after he won his match and put a huge dramatic exclamation point on the build-up to the finals, where it was like, oh no, is Tyler Bate too injured? Is he going to be able to make it to the finals? And he's going to be going into the finals hurt and all that stuff. So when you get to the match itself, it's more dramatic, it's more, you know, interesting and exciting, and you really want Tyler Bate to win, and then he did. And again, it just made for a more exciting story and a great payoff with Tyler Bate ultimately winning and becoming the first ever UK champion for the WWE. Now, is that going to be a title that carries over onto the main roster? Are they going to do more with it? Are they going to do a weekly UK show? I have no idea. We'll just have to wait and see. But For the 2 shows, I thought it was a lot of fun. It was just an enjoyable tournament. I wouldn't put it up there with the... well, the Cruiserweight Classic didn't really... Okay, this tournament had the one thing that the Cruiserweight Classic was kind of lacking, in that the Cruiserweight Classic didn't really have a heel. Going through the whole thing, it was just... I mean, they had some heels, but they got eliminated fairly early, like... Davari, I guess, would be one of them. But for the most part, they kind of like... It was mostly babyface matches and putting forward more of the athleticism of the guys rather than straight-up heels and faces. So, really, the UK Championship had the one thing that the Cruiserweight Classic was lacking. But the Cruiserweight Classic also went on for 10 weeks and was much easier to get excited about and watch from week to week as everything continued. This... it was only a 2-night thing, and I didn't really get enough time to really spend time with these guys and get to know them any better. Because, like I said, the only one I had seen before was Mark Andrews. So it didn't have kind of that long and exciting process that the Cruiserweight Classic had, but it did have the one thing that the Cruiserweight Classic was lacking, which was a heel. So I thought it worked out fine. It was a fun tournament, and I enjoyed it. But... yeah, so if you haven't seen it, I recommend checking it out. It was pretty good. And like I said, the finals was a damn good match. And very, very nice capstone to the tournament. But yeah, so UK Championship gets a thumbs up from me. I enjoyed it. Now I want to talk about the WWE Hall of Fame and the first inductee for the 2017 class. Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle will be going into the WWE Hall of Fame. I am fully in favor of this. I think Kurt Angle is a guy that completely deserves to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. And the reason I say that, Kurt was never my favorite worker like he was for a lot of other people. I mean, go back and read, like, old posts and articles from that time period and what the smart marks were saying about Kurt Angle, like the early 2000s, mid-2000s. I mean, you would have thought he was, like, the second coming of Christ. Like, he's the greatest worker of all time. He's amazing. He's the best. Kurt Angle, nobody is better than Kurt Angle. He's #1, clearly, and that's how they constantly sold him on the internet. I never got that into Kurt Angle as far as, like, appreciating his work. He was always on every roster he was on, whether it be Attitude Era WWF or Raw or SmackDown or TNA. He was a top 5 worker everywhere he went, but he was never unquestionably #1. There were always guys around that I liked more, and I did have some criticisms about some of the tendencies that Angle had in some of his matches. I think the Finisher Fest aspect, he's one of the contributing factors of why they're a Finisher Fest now, because all of his matches would turn into that. I used to joke that the Angle Slam was the most pointless finisher in the WWE, because he hardly ever beat anybody with it. It was like everybody kicked out of the Angle Slam, but he would just try to make his matches as exciting as possible, so that would involve people kicking out of his finisher, and it kind of rendered his finisher meaningless. And, you know, it was no surprise that he eventually went to the ankle lock. That was in 2001, I believe. But, yeah, so a couple psychology problems in some of his matches, but most of his work was very good, and what I will say about Kurt that nobody can deny, he may not have been my favorite worker, but he was definitely the hardest worker on every roster he was on. Kurt Angle is the type of guy that if his job were flipping burgers at McDonald's, he would work his ass off to flip more burgers than anybody else in the building. He had that type of mindset, and he brought that to pro wrestling. And he brought a work ethic that was unparalleled. I mean, that guy was just, I mean, when they started calling him the wrestling machine, I'm like, yeah, he kind of is. And even later in his career, in his TNA run, where he had absolutely no reason to be motivated, he was motivated and worked his ass off. Even towards the end of his career, when his neck was giving him problems, and that was a consistent problem for him throughout his entire wrestling career, were neck issues. This guy's taking top rope, doing top rope suplexes, and he had that one match with AJ, their last man standing match, where he took a top rope DDT with his neck, and I'm like, dude, just seriously, dude. Kurt Angle worked harder than anybody, and I will applaud him. The dude was a natural, making the transition from amateur wrestling and Olympic competition to transition to the world of entertainment. and all that entails as far as pro wrestling goes. I thought he was a natural, not just in the ring. And he, again, if you look at his transition, he got the in-ring stuff down pretty quick, way quicker than most people would. And of course, he had the credentials to go along with that. But the entertainment side of things, I mean, he's always a good talker and could be hysterical. I loved early days Kurt Angle with the 3 eyes and the drinking milk and basically being a parody of like the 80s babyface. And having that character exist in the Attitude Era. It just felt perfectly natural for him, and he played it perfectly. He was just very game for just about anything. And like I said, he worked harder than anybody. And deserves a lot of credit for that. But his biggest contribution to pro wrestling, I already mentioned it, but him winning a gold medal in the Olympics, and I remember when he won the gold medal, really, for someone like him to want to get involved in the business and to do as well in it as he did, that really adds a lot of legitimacy to the art form of pro wrestling. Both as an athletic exhibition. No, it's not a competition, because everything's scripted and the outcomes are determined, but for somebody like Kurt Angle, with all the credentials and all the credibility in the world, to go into pro wrestling and work as hard as he does at it, it really adds a lot to the art form, and really does a lot to give it credibility and give it, make it more exciting that somebody like him would get involved in it. And to spend as many years doing it as he did, when you take his TNA run into account, his WWE run, you know, he's getting close to 20 years, the amount of time he's put into it. And with all the injuries and everything, it really speaks volumes that, again, of Kurt's work ethic and his credentials and his credibility as an amateur athlete, and to bring that over to pro wrestling, I think deserves a lot of recognition. So I know that he left the WWE initially under very angry circumstances. He was not the happiest camper on the planet when he left, but, you know, as Ultimate Warrior showed, and as Bret Hart showed, and as Bruno Sammartino showed, you know, if they can come back, I mean, fuck, anybody can come back at this point. People are saying that CM Punk will never go back to the WWE, and I'm like, dude, Bruno, Bret, and Warrior, anybody can come back. And there's no, like, sooner or later CM Punk is going to come back. It's just a question of when. But, so yeah, I think Kurt is a great pick for the Hall of Fame. I think he is a great, like, centerpiece to the whole, to the class this year. Is he going to wrestle again for the WWE? Well, I've heard rumblings that he might, rumblings. He may pop up in the Royal Rumble and do a spot there. I've also heard a lot of speculation that he's going to have a match at WrestleMania, which further adds to the whole, like, glorified legend show that WrestleMania is becoming, where it's like, okay, here's another part-timer coming out and getting a match at WrestleMania. But, you know, let's see what happens. I mean, if they're able to come up with a really good program for him and they're able to do something substantial with him, I wouldn't necessarily mind him having a WrestleMania match. If they just put him in there with, say, like Kevin Owens, and he just goes over Kevin Owens, I'd be like, ugh. I was like, ugh, fine, whatever. You know, something akin to that. That would be annoying, but they could probably find a good way to use him. Who knows? I don't know, but overall, I am happy for Kurt. He deserves the recognition, deserves the honor, so I think he's a very good pick to go into the WWE Hall of Fame. So, that is all I have for this particular video. Like I said, my next video will be a preview of the Royal Rumble and the NXT TakeOver special. It will also most likely be my final video in this apartment. Oh, I take that back. I actually have 2 videos planned. I'm also doing my next classic match review. I'm going to put the poll up on Twitter tonight. And the match you will get to select from is a classic Raw match. So I think all the matches are, they date from 93 to 97. So we're talking very early year Raw stuff. 3 matches that you get to pick from, and I will review said match. So that will probably be my final video in the apartment. So that, and you've got a Royal Rumble and NXT preview to look forward to. I probably will not be able to watch Royal Rumble or NXT TakeOver live because I'm going to be moving. So reviews of those will probably be delayed. But you do have 2 videos to look forward to from me next week. But that is all I have for you now. So good night, everybody.